Jake Muller is the son of Albert Wesker and an unknown woman. Needing to support his ill mother, Jake would work as a mercenary in 2007. But in 2012, Jake would end up in Indonesia to assist the Indonesian Liberation Army, where he would inject himself with a C virus. Due to having antibodies in his blood, he wouldn't suffer any mutations. But he would go on to meet DSO agent Sherry Birkin, who needed to evacuate him for vaccine research, but only under the condition that he received $50 million in cash. However, the two would be pursued by a BOW known as the Usanak, that would later be successful in capturing the two after they escaped the mine. For the next 6 months, Jake would be experimented on, who would eventually break out with Sherry, find their way through the streets of China with the help of Chris Redfield and Piers Nevas, after rendezvousing with Simmons, who would order Sherry to apprehend Leon and his partner Helena. However, they would be ambushed by Giavo shortly after and taken to an underwater base, where the two would fight their way through the base. The two would once again encounter the Usanak, but after a prolonged fight, Jake would knock the Usanak into molten lava, but they will later encounter it on the lift, where Jake and Sherry would shoot the Usanak, finally putting an end as it perished into the inferno. The last we see of Jake is where he's last seen taking out BOWs in exchange for an apple. Hunk is a character that is so mysterious that nothing is known about him even to this day. The earliest information we have on him is that he received training at the Military Training Center on Rockford Island in 1996. In only 2 years, he carried out a large number of missions, which he was only left as a sole survivor, earning him the nickname Mr. Death, or better known as the Grim Reaper. But his survival rate was only rivaled by one man, UBCS Sergeant Nikolai Genevieve. In mid-September in 1998, Hunk and his team were assigned to steal the G-virus from Dr. William Birkin, but one of Hunk's men fired on him when Birkin pulled a gun. However, Birkin would inject himself with a spare sample of the virus. It would mutate, taking out Hunk's men, leaving him the sole survivor. But a week later, Hunk would fight his way through the sewer and Raccoon City Police Department, where he would escape and being escorted out of the city by a pilot who wanted to meet him in person. But after the fall of Umbrella, all that we know is that Hunk would go on to become a legendary mercenary. Well, what's up, Winter, here with my premiere match where I'll be kicking off Season 2 with a good old Resident Evil style mercenary showdown, where I'll be pitting Jake Muller against Umbrella's best field agent, Hunk, to see who will come out on top. Now, due to very little evidence and quote-unquote canon element on Hunk, I'll be taking his appearances from Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles and Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, as well as appearance from Resident Evil 4. And with that out of the way, let's start by comparing and contrasting these two physically. By the end of Resident Evil 6, Jake will be a 20-year-old man standing around 6'3" and weighing about 176 pounds, with a muscular build. Due to being a mercenary, Jake kept himself in prime physical condition. However, after injecting himself with the C virus, all of his physical abilities were enhanced. He can overpower Giavo with ease, stagger the Usanak in hand-to-hand combat, and perform acrobatic maneuvers with ease, even walk off an RPG round. even taking a hit from the gooseneck. However, he did seem winded by this. Speed is a bit unknown, however it is implied that his speed will be enhanced, since he is shown to react to Javo and even outruns the gooseneck. Stamina wise, much like Chris and Sherry, Jake can fight for prolonged periods of time with short breaks needed. Due to very little evidence on Hunk, I'll go on a limb and say that by default of Umbrella, Hunk would likely be around his 30s or 40s, and kept himself in prime condition. His best showing of strength is shown how he's able to snap the neck of his opponents with ease. And the proper way to perform this feat, the person would need a damn good amount of strength to correctly snap vertebrae. Durability wise, Hunk's best showing is tanking a hit from William Birkin, who is mutated after injecting himself with the G virus. While it may not sound impressive at first, Birkin's strength is already shown to one-shot a T-103. Speed-wise, Hunk is able to react to mutated reptilians and go from fight to fight with very little breaks needed. For stamina, we only have one feat to go off. His only showing of stamina is finding his way through the sewers and Raccoon City Police Department for a week until his evac arrived. While this category is a bit complicated, since they would certainly be above the average man, Hunk would certainly be hitting harder, but Jake is hitting back more harder. Speed is fairly simple. Hunk has only been shown to react to reptilians, while Jake's feet are overall more impressive. Durability is surprisingly a bit complicated. Both have taken hits that would one-shot mutate zombies, but I'm more leaning towards Jake, since he's shown to walk off a point-blank RPG round. Stamina-wise, I'll go on limb and say that they're both equal, due to them both not tiring out in the slightest, and have shown to go from fight to fight without showing any kind of fatigue. But despite Hunk having a decent amount of feats, he can sure hit hard and stay on his toes. But Jake, at the end of the day, due to his enhancements, can perform much more better. So I give Jake the edge in physical capabilities. Now, just so we're clear, and due to these two using various weapons, I'll be limiting their arsenal to a total of 2 weapons each, a ranged and a handgun, as well as any side weapons that they have been seen carrying. Now that out of the way, let's continue. Jake only carries a total of 2 weapons. His handgun is known as his Now 9 handgun. That's a typical 9mm handgun that fires 9mm rounds with a clip size of 15 rounds. His long-range weapon is his Bear Commander. The Bear Commander is a full-out assault rifle that fires 5.56mm NATO rounds with a grenade launcher attachment that fires 40mm explosive rounds. Jake didn't carry any kind of knife, but he mainly preferred to use his hands when engaging in close quarters combat. Hunk will be carrying a total of 4 weapons. His first is his TMP submachine gun. However, he did modify this to hold magazine size of 100 rounds and also increased his firepower and fire rate. His second firearm resembles an H&K P8 handgun that has a 3-burst setting with a clip size of 14 rounds. He also carried a combat knife and 3 hand grenades on him. For armor, Hunk wears a tactical vest, elbow and knee pads, a gas mask, and a helmet. This one's fairly simple from the last category. When it comes to your assault rifles, Hunk's TMP is modified to have a higher magazine, firepower, and fire rate. However, the grenade launcher is something that Hunk would have to look out for. For handguns, it's a bit of a toss-up. On one hand, Jake's 909 is holding well more bullets than Hunk's P8. However, Hunk's P8 has a higher caliber rounds and a 3-burst setting to fall back on. So I feel confident giving Hunk the slight advantage as well as the edge to Hunk in weapons, since Jake doesn't have any extra weapons or armor to back up this category. Growing up as a mercenary, it can be assumed that Jake has some military knowledge, leaving me to believe that Jake would be trained in Muay Thai, similar to kickboxing, but trains the user to use elbow and knee blows, and Judo that trains the user to use throws and takedowns to force an opponent to submit. When not choosing to shoot down opponents from distance, Jake, when engaging close quarters, primarily uses palm strikes and kicks, much like his father Albert Wesker, to disorient his opponents before it takes them down with a judo throw or kick. However, much like Wesker, Jake does have a bit of an ego, shown as when he attempted to take down the Usnik in their first engagement, despite the Usnik being as twice his size and ignoring high caliber gunfire, and when he chose to stand fight despite being outnumbered by Juavo. Hunk began his training on Rockford Island training facility in 1996 and quickly became known as Bro's most effective field agents. Despite his hand-to-hand skills being unknown, we know he did eventually develop his own fighting style dubbed CQBZ, or better known as Close Quarters Quarantine Battle Zone. Due to his weapons of choice, Hunk relies on close to medium range, since engaging any BLW at close range would end very badly for anyone. As an overall combatant, Hunk is cold, ruthless, and will take any measures necessary to get the job done. And due to his choice of equipment, it can be applied that Hunk relies on stealth and will only stand his ground when absolutely necessary. Despite Hunk being Umbrella's best field agent and having a surprisingly better resume than Jake, Hunk unfortunately falls short, since CQBZ is not only best used as a unit and not a solo man, but also better used against a group of zombies and BOWs. But I'll give Hunk a slight advantage in hand-to-hand combat, since out of all of Umbrella's field agents, he's been unrivaled in hand-to-hand except for one man that Hunk himself personally trained. And as I mentioned before, Hunk relies on close to medium range, and leaving me the best way to describe these two is fairly simple. Hunk is an infantryman trained to get in, take out the target, or take what he's assigned to obtain, and get out as quickly as possible. While Jake is trained to survive as a mercenary, and despite Hunk having a slightly being better trained in hand-to-hand combat, Jake would be better trained in combat shooting, since he's shown to operate from close to long range. But as the fight drags on, it's Jake who will remain ahead of Hunk. And I'll say again, despite Hunk being better trained, Jake is more a flexible combatant, which is why I believe grants him the edge in combat skills and tactics. Let's just say Jake has been assigned a mission by the BSAA to take out any remaining Umbrella agents for a good cut if he succeeds. Accepting the mission, he manages to track down Hunk somewhere in Edonia to obtain a sample of the C virus for Umbrella from a warehouse. However, hearing a handgun safety switch off, Hunk turns around and fires while Jake takes cover behind a pillar. Hunk states that no one should be in Antonio due to the outbreak. Jake in turn states that he's no survivor, that he's here for him. Well, I guess I'll just have to kill you then. Switching to his bear commander, Jake corner fires as Hunk runs to cover. He fires on Jake, who takes a minor shot to the arm as Hunk tosses a grenade, forcing Jake out of cover. But Jake blind fires to take cover behind a wall to reload. Hunk does the same and takes cover behind a pillar, peeking out. Hit from his cover, the mercenary moves from cover to cover, but after moving from his cover and firing where he anticipated that Hunk would be, he's taken off guard when he finds no one. Spinning into 180, Jake is whacked across the temple by Hunk and kicked in the ribs, as well knocking his gun out of his hands. Reaching for his handgun, the Grim Reaper puts a halt to this by placing his foot on his forearm and kicking him again and again, but Jake manages to grab his foot and drop him. As to give, Hunk makes a grab for his TMP, but Jake grabs him by his vest and slams him into a wall before tossing him through a window. Jumping through the window, Hunk slashes Jake's leg with his knife, forcing him to step back. Seeing this, the mercenary takes a defensive stance as to inch closer. The two trade blows back and forth, but Hunk manages to land a number of slashes, jabs, and kicks. But compared to what Jake has taken, they're pretty much nothing to him. Jake, on the other hand, lands several elbow and knee blows that Hunk is starting to feel. Taking a few steps back, the Grim Reaper tosses another grenade and evacuates the room. Jake dives out the window but loses sight of the Reaper and retrieves his bear commander. But before he can reach it, he's placed in a rear neck chokehold as Jake elbows Hunk repeatedly over and over. But Hunk responds to this by stabbing into Jake's side. However, he powers through and flips him over, saying punch after punch, forcing the Reaper to release his grip. Jake removes a knife from his side as Hunk spear tackles him. However, it's Jake who overpowers Hunk as they fight over the knife and stabs him over and over through his helmet before stomping on the hilt, splitting his skull apart. And with that, I declare Jake Muller, the mercenary, the winner. Okay, look, I'm not even going to waste anyone's time here. I have to admit that I knew how the fight would turn out, since there are so many elements that Jake has that Hunk doesn't. Physically, Jake outclasses Hunk in pretty much all departments. Sure, he may be hitting the same ballpark and be able to take the hit, but Jake is enhanced, surpassing peak humans in the Resident Evil universe. Hunk may have a slight edge in weapons, but that's not enough to beat someone like Jake. As combatants, they are two combatants that operate very differently. Hunk is trained to fight against zombies and BOWs, while Jake is using his own design skill set to fight against BOWs and infected by a far more stronger virus, as well against physically superior BOWs. And to answer some questions, this was a match that was planned out, sounding really good on paper, but I found out who would win after looking into these two. But if anyone could think of how Hunk could possibly win, I'd sure like to hear it. Anyways, with that said, be sure to like, comment, subscribe for future verse matches, and also check out a verse match that Ray and I did together a while back. And be sure to follow me on Twitter for future updates if you care about that. And I'll see y'all at my first requested match. I'm out.
Not now, Ezra.
Look, I just wanted to say I know what it's like. Believe me, Kanan's not the easiest teacher to have, but he means well.
Does he? Do any of them? I know how to fight. I believe I can learn to use that sword. I just don't want everything that comes with it.
You mean your family?
I'm a disgrace to them, Ezra. A traitor.
But that's not true.
To them, it is. You don't know. No one does. I don't want to talk about these things. How can I lead my people? How can I go back there and face them?
I'm sorry, Sabine. At least you have parents to go back to.
I've been tracking you, Mandalorian.
Are you Jedi? Or are you after the child?
I'm here for the armor.
If you want my armor, you'll have to peel it off my dead body.
I don't want your armor. I want my armor. That you got from Cobb Vanth back on Tatooine. It belongs to me.
Are you Mandalorian?
I'm a simple man making his way through the galaxy. Like my father before me.
Did you take the creed?
I give my allegiance to no one.
The Beskar belongs to the Mandalorians. It was looted from us during the Purge.
The armor was my father's. Now it's mine.
What's to stop me from dropping you right where you stand?
Because I have a sharpshooter up on that ridge. With a lock scope that will unload by the time my body hits the ground.
I'm the one wearing Beskar. As soon as I see that muzzle flash, you're both dead.
I didn't mean she was going to shoot you. My friend's locked on to that little companion of yours up on the henge. I will never fall. I will rise.
I can face the world.